I'm joined once again in studio by my good friend from the law offices of Goldberg and Jones. Divorce for Men, 1-800-DIVORCE is the telephone number. It's Colin Amos in studio. What's up, Colin? You're doing well, I hope?
I'm doing excellent. It's
That's
good to be
fantastic. Here. Colin Amos is in studio, the law offices of Goldberg and Jones. Divorce for Men, 1-800-DIVORCE is the telephone number if you're facing a custody battle or a potential divorce. Colin is your man. You can call 1-800-DIVORCE, and he will get you started with a no-obligation consultation to point you in the right direction. I think that's very important. And that's pretty much how it works, right? You've got to know where to go if you're going to face a custody battle or a divorce.
Yeah, just give me a call because, again, answer questions over the phone at no charge. There's no hidden balls there, and we go through everything. Today I spent 35 minutes on the phone with a guy who just was pretty freaked out about the situation and what's going on, and I was able to calm him down, give him some guidance, and then if they need a consultation, we're there too. But we don't even charge hourly for an actual in-person consultation, which takes about an hour. It's $95, so it's important to get the right information before you make any decisions.
You got to do it. You can't operate alone. That's why they're there to help. 1-800-DIVORCE is your telephone number. Colin Amos is in studio. Now, I love it because you bring in questions, but today we've got some topical questions involving a former athlete that we know so well, Deion Sanders, primetime. Here's a little synopsis on it. The former cornerback filed for divorce from Pilar back in 2011, and the world caught wind of a very public dispute that had been taking place over the last year. And last April, a domestic altercation took place at the former couple's $5.7 million home, where each alleged that they were attacked by the other. However, a judge ruled that the Hall of Famer was only defending himself against Pilar's assault. Texas District Judge Ray Wellis gave the former NFL player temporary custody of the couple's children pending a custody hearing, while mandating that his former wife remain 500 yards from the home where he resides in Dallas, Texas. Now, the pair are involved in hearings in the 366th District Court regarding the matter of their children's residence and child support. While the former Cowboy star testimony took over the majority of Tuesday's proceedings, the court will reconvene on Wednesday. So, basically, here's the situation. Deion and his wife were involved in a domestic altercation where the judge ruled that he was only protecting himself. The judge later ruled that Deion may have temporary custody and mandating the wife remain 500 yards away from the residence. So I guess the first question from here, Colin, what can men do to protect themselves from being falsely accused of domestic violence, which goes on constantly?
Yeah, and just a further update, because some things transpired in the Deion case. He ended up getting custody of his kids, and obviously, he's a football player. He's a big guy, and I don't know if you've seen his now ex-wife. She's petite. She's in good shape, but the bottom line is, there are those cases. The police were called, and they can evaluate a situation, and they're trying to figure out what the right result is. The cops aren't there to try to put guys in jail by any means, and so. Quite frankly, it's hard because guys are generally bigger and women are smaller, and you don't know what's going on. Police walk into a charged situation,
yes,
and it's a very dangerous call an officer gets to walk into that kind of volatility, and so they're nervous. And about what you can do, first of all, is keep a level head. It's not so good if the police do get called because they got to figure it out.
Yes.
And sometimes they don't know what's going on. But I always tell guys, this probably wasn't the first argument you had that was, maybe police being called, or I'm going to call the police, or I'm going to get a restraining order.
Sometimes there's a history there.
Yeah, so read the writing on the wall. I mean, if it's gotten that bad in the relationship, maybe it's time to have an exit strategy before the stuff hits the fan.
Well, we see this all the time. It's a he said, she said situation. So what do you think Deion, who's the big football player, he's got a petite wife, what did he have to do to prove that he was defending himself?
Well, at that point, I'm guessing that he did not actually strike out. He probably had scratches. I'm guessing. Again, this wasn't in the report when an officer comes.
But it goes back to what you're saying. Keep a level head.
Yes.
And don't lose yourself. Don't lose control.
I mean, it really can go a bad direction, and then you're dealing with potentially a domestic assault 4 in the presence of a minor, which could be a felony. So, there's just no sense in striking out in any physical way. Even there's some guys that will grab wrists and push to the side. That has problems. So, exit strategy, get out of there as soon as possible. Fight the battle in a different way.
And that's probably always good advice for a guy, right? If things get heated and you think that things might get violent, just get the heck out of Dodge. Leave.
Get it out.
Let things cool off.
Yeah, that's when I sit down with people and I say, things aren't going. Either you're getting into marriage counseling and working out these problems, or you're headed towards a bad result. And why do we have to wait till a restraining order is pursued before we actually take action.
That makes sense. Now, the final question in regards to the Dion situation is, when should a guy, or when should men, seek a restraining order?
A lot of guys have pride that gets in the way of that one.
What are you talking about, pride, man?
Yeah, some guys, they're getting a little softer, as far as that goes. But the reality of it is, if you're truly being physically abused, and it happens, you should seek that if you're putting in fear of imminent bodily harm or contact on a regular basis. But the most important part, especially when kids are involved, restraining orders really don't resolve the problem. So I usually tell people, maybe we can get preemptive, file a divorce or custody case, and deal with the real issues. You guys don't have to be together. Fine, we'll solve that pretty easily. You guys move out and do that. But the issues usually revolves more around the kids and custody and visitation. And restraining orders, even if they're pursued, take a back seat eventually to all that.
All right, the law offices of Goldberg and Jones. Colin Amos is in studio. If you have any questions, you're facing a possible divorce or a custody battle, 1-800-DIVORCE is your telephone number. Now, Colin, a few other questions that rolled into you. What is a contempt petition, and when should one be filed?
Yeah, a lot of people call me and say, I want a contempt. I want to file contempt. And really, there's quite a few instances when you have an enforcement proceeding or a contempt petition. You have a court order that says X, and your ex is not following that. Visitation is a perfect example. You have Thanksgiving, you have Easter, spring break. We just got done dealing with a lot where you have your visitation, and she says, sorry, you can't have him. Well, if your court order says it's your time to have him, you have two options. One, do nothing, but don't whine about it if you're just not going to enforce the court order, or enforce the court order. And if you enforce it on something legitimate, it really actually creates a better relationship with your ex in the future because she respects your rights. The kids are happier. You follow the rules. But you file a contempt petition when something significant is violated by the court order.
All right, this next question is a bit disturbing. It says, my girlfriend, whom I live with, had a baby, swore I was the father, so I signed the paternity affidavit. Once we get home from the hospital, she calls DHS telling them that we don't live together and that she was sleeping with other people. What should I do?
This is unfortunately something that happens a lot. Maybe not calling the DHS, but you find out later that maybe I'm not the father here, and
Yikes.
She was seeing somebody else. When you sign at the hospital, when you leave, if you're there, you sign an affidavit, and if you sign that affidavit, you have a very, very short period of time to rescind that and contest paternity. After that period of time, you're legally the father, whether you find out a year later that you're not. So if you don't sign the affidavit, you have a longer period. But if you've been told you're the father, you act as the father, then there could be this time period that goes on where, legally you're the father.
This goes back to the Kardashian situation, right? With Kim, and she was impregnated not by her husband at the time, which was Chris Humphries, but the rapper.
That's right, Kanye West. And because they're married, Kanye is not the father. Blake Griffin is the father, so it works mysterious ways in a lot of different odd situations. So.
All right, the final question here, it says, when should I seek child support or custody modifications?
Child support modification is a big deal. When you have significant changes in circumstances, I can tell, anybody who's listening, certainly guys, don't just file a modification or go to the state. Give me a call. I mean, even if we sit down in a consultation, because there's factors that change, maybe income, but they don't consider maybe there's a daycare issue or some other expense that has come up or other changes that occurred, and they file a modification, or the statute has changed and the guidelines have changed. They file a modification, all of a sudden it goes up when they should go down. And so it's very knowable. There's a formula online through the state of Oregon and Washington. We can figure out the answer before we take the test. So let's run through the numbers, make sure it's sensible to bring a modification. But generally, when there's substantial changes in the financial circumstances, custody modifications, those are big deals. We'd want to make sure before we open up that can of worms that we have a good plan of action. We're moving forward. So that one I'd want to sit down and talk with anybody before they make that big decision. All
right. If you're facing a custody battle or a potential divorce, give the law offices of Goldberg and Jones a call, 1-800-DIVORCE. Colin Amos will answer the phone. He will take care of your questions, find out, what you're looking to accomplish, and he'll point you in the right direction. That's the best place to start, 1-800-DIVORCE. Colin, great questions, great topics. It's nice to see you once again in studio.
All right, thanks for having me.